Petreece, inspiring you. That's who we are. That's what we do.
Hi, I'm Petreece Cuffie, counselor and trainer, and one of my deepest desires is to see people experience the fulfillment and growth that comes through healthy relationships. We're wired for relationships, so tune in and join with me as I explore and discuss tools for healthy relationships every Monday, 12:15 p.m. on Isaac 98.1 FM.
Guys, we welcome you back to another edition of the program Healthy Relationships with counselor and trainer Petreece Cuffie. Just want to let you guys know we are streaming live on FBN TV on YouTube and Isaac the Promise on Facebook. Good afternoon to you, Petreece. So welcome back.
And good afternoon to all listeners and viewers. Really happy to be here again this afternoon and to continue 10 things you should know about acceptance in marriage. So this is part 2 of that program, and I got a message saying that it was really good. Please do a recap before you go on to part 2. So I am following instructions because I think the instructions are reasonable. So again, 10 things you need to know about acceptance in marriage, and this is part 2. And I will do a short recap. So thank you for tuning in, for listening, for viewing. And I'm always really grateful for the feedback that I get from time to time. Thankful that the program is really blessing individuals, couples, and families. We thank you, God. To God be the glory. So, again, 10 things you should know about acceptance in marriage. And acceptance is actually one of the characteristics that is necessary for a healthy marriages. And so spouses accept each other for who they are. And really, when you try to change anyone, including your spouse, that is not normally met well. It's normally met with resistance, inadequate, and it could also end up in couples just arguing and quarreling all the time, right? So someone said to dream the person you would want or you would like your partner to be is to waste the person your partner is. I didn't say that, but I agree because our spouses are unique. You are unique. You are listening to me right now, and you know there's nobody else like you on this earth. You are unique, so therefore your partner is also unique. And in Romans 5:7, the God of the universe, our creator, right, says, therefore accept each other just as Christ has accepted you, so that God will be given glory. That's Romans 15:7. Now, what I addressed the first 5 things you should know about acceptance in marriage in the first program. So I'll be doing the next 5 today from 6 to 10. And just a recap of those first 5. So what are those things? Number 1, what is acceptance? 2, the proper attitude to cultivate acceptance. 3, the difference between acceptance and tolerance. 4, things to do to be more accepting of your spouse. 5, when we need change, not acceptance. Number 6, the secret to acceptance in marriage. Number 7, our thinking, working on ourselves, because these are different things we need to do. Stop going over the past, that's number 9. And number 10, prayer. So, brief recap. What is acceptance? Acceptance is a heart matter, and it's a choice. And according to marriage.com, acceptance involves a more embracing and understanding stance. It acknowledges the reality of the situation or a person as they are without trying to change or resist it. Acceptance is about embracing differences and seeing them as valid or valuable. So the differences that we see in our spouses are valid and they are valuable. So acceptance doesn't mean that I agree with your sinful behavior or your unhealthy behavior. It doesn't mean that. Acceptance means that I will treat you respectfully if I have to share with you or when I have to share with you about sinful or painful behaviors or flaws that are harming you and harming the relationship. We must remember that there are things about a person, there are things about you, right, that are not going to change. And they shouldn't, because it is what makes you you. They're not sinful, they're not wrong. So they shouldn't change, right? The only time that we should help our spouses to change is when it is mutually acceptable. So your spouse wants to change. If you want to change, I'm here to help you. And it is also beneficial. So it is accepted, right? Acceptable for both and beneficial. Trying to change your spouse to fit your mold then generally doesn't have positive results, right? And most times a person just ends up feeling really inadequate about himself or herself, like I'm just not good enough. And I've heard spouses say, I think my wife just doesn't like me. She does not like me. And those are painful statements to make. Number two, the proper attitude to cultivate acceptance. The proper attitude to cultivate acceptance. If you love someone, you can appreciate and enjoy the ways in which he or she is different from you, right? Now, you can choose to see these differences as flaws, you know, but the attitude we want to have is to see these differences as peculiar characteristics or idiosyncrasies that makes this person unique and for you to enjoy and appreciate. It may annoy you at times, especially in the earlies, but you actually eventually both learn to laugh about it because it's what makes a person unique, right? And removing any of those qualities. And remember, these are not sinful things, they just make us different, right? You don't have an improved wife or an improved husband. What you have is a whole different wife and a whole different husband. You have someone else entirely. So, and it is generally in these areas of differences that there's usually the most attraction, the most struggle, and the most opportunity for growth. So we need to see these differences that we have as opportunities for both of us to grow. So does it mean that you like everything about your partner? Of course not, right? Does it mean that they don't sometimes drive you crazy, get you upset? Yes. Does it mean that you don't pray for change? Of course you do, right? But you have to remember that the bad comes with the good, and there's no perfect. There's no perfect on this side of eternity. You're not a perfect wife. You're not a perfect husband. I'm not a perfect wife. It's just what it is. All right. And we thank God for his acceptance of us in all our imperfections, that God continues to accept us as his children that he loves, who are a work in progress. And we are his growing children. Number three, the differences between acceptance and tolerance. And this was from marriage.com, an article they did on the differences between acceptance and tolerance in relationships. And the first difference was with the definition, and tolerance implies putting up with something without actively opposing it, right? It doesn't mean you're embracing it or you're supporting it, or even that you agree with your opinions, but you're just putting up with it. You're not opposing it. Acceptance involves a more embracing and understanding stance. It acknowledges the reality of the situation, right, without trying to change or resist it. So that's a difference there. There's a difference also with acceptance and tolerance, because sometimes we can confuse tolerance with acceptance. The emotional response, that's another difference there. So with tolerance, it may involve suppressing negative emotions to keep the peace. And of course, if you're doing that, if you're, I'm tolerating, I'm just putting up with this to keep the peace, you know what could end up happening. You can have resentment. You can have frustration because there's no real genuine um, acceptance or understanding of the situation. Acceptance, on the other hand, you have feelings like compassion and love and empathy because, oh my goodness, yes, I get this. I could see this person's different. I love them for those differences, right? Thirdly, difference between acceptance and tolerance, the attitude towards differences. So, with tolerance, you acknowledge the existence of differences, but it doesn't lead to a celebration or appreciation of those differences. With acceptance, you see differences as essential aspects of a person's identity and embrace them as part of what makes this individual unique, special. So there's a difference in the attitude. So, and I tell people in marriages, we need acceptance, a good bit of acceptance. We need a pinch of tolerance, and we need change. Those are things that are necessary if we have to have healthy marriages. So there is sometimes a pinch of tolerance in there, in terms of healthy marriages. A next difference is with respect to the depth of engagement. So how do I interact with this person, right? So with tolerance, it would involve merely putting up with someone's presence or actions without you investing emotionally or connecting with them deeply. So, all right, I need to put up with you for this Christmas season. Uh, right. I'm not really invested there emotionally. But with acceptance, it fosters deeper level of emotional engagement and connection. Another difference with acceptance and tolerance is one has an active stance and one has a passive stance. And I'm sure you already know which one has the active stance, which one has the passive stance. So tolerance can be more passive, right? Where one may not take on an active role in addressing issues or concerns. Remember, one of the things with tolerance, I'm just doing this to keep the peace. I don't really want to be here that much. But acceptance requires active engagement. It encourages communication, it encourages empathy, and efforts to resolve conflict or challenges in a constructive and supportive manner. Another difference would be with respect to boundaries and limits. So tolerance might involve tolerating or putting up with behaviors that cross personal boundary limits where you could feel like you're being taken for granted or disrespected. So I'm tolerating this, so I'm not saying anything. And of course, the resentment, the frustration, the disrespect that you could feel if this is what you are doing, just tolerating. And with acceptance, acceptance still requires setting respectful, healthy boundaries. It involves understanding and respecting each other's limits while fostering a supportive and caring environment. And then the last one, with difference with respect to the willingness to change, tolerance may not necessarily require individuals to change their behaviors or belief. It doesn't. Acceptance doesn't demand change, but it allows room for personal growth and mutual adaptation. And if you want to hear more, you can go back to part 1 of this. Number 4, things to do to be more accepting of your spouse. And I would have shared things I would have done to be more accepting of my spouse. And of course, one of the best ways to be more accepting of your partner's flaws or even their differences is to be aware of yours and to be able to accept yours. And remember, acceptance doesn't mean that I don't need to change. It doesn't mean that. Because actually, the first step in changing is accepting that I have an issue. All right? So to be more accepting of your spouse, work on understanding and accepting yourself. Work on understanding and accepting yourself. So I worked on understanding and accepting myself. I try to focus on me changing. What could I have done differently instead of saying, what is wrong with this man? Right? I learned to appreciate and show appreciation for what he, being different, the fact that he is different, what it brought to my life. Because we are both a work in progress, I have learned to appreciate that dealing with each other's weaknesses, flaws, and sins helped both of us to appreciate and experience more of God's grace and allow the Holy Spirit to produce his fruit in us. And the last one, I chose to forgive him, to love him, and to empathize with him, to see the world through his eyes. Very important. A lot of times when I work with couples, we realize how much pain is not processed and how much we haven't been forgiven in our relationships. So when we need, number 5, when we need change and not acceptance. So it's important to know the difference between weaknesses versus abuse or mistreatment. Your spouse's flaws and weaknesses are normal when they don't leave lasting physical or emotional scars on your body, your soul, and your mind. When you must hide to keep secrets about your spouse's actions or words, then there is a deeper problem. When you have to lie about things, there's a deeper problem. So I'm not saying that you're spreading your spouse's business everywhere, but you shouldn't feel like I need to lie about behavior or make excuses, all the time for a person's behavior. We are talking about abuse when you have to do those things, and that is not acceptable at all. And once there's abuse, physical, emotional, psychological, verbal, spiritual, financial abuse, change is needed, not acceptance. Very important. We don't accept abuse. Change. Something has to change. So now to number 6. So this is where I would have stopped last Monday. Number 6, the secret to acceptance in marriage. I think was the secret. It is about giving up your need to control your spouse. We don't realize how much as fallen human beings, when Adam and Eve sinned, we all became defective, right? That's why we need Jesus. As fallen human beings, we have a need to control, not just for things in our lives, to control those things, but to control people, to feel comfortable. So one of the things, if we need to be more accepting, the secret to acceptance in your marriage is to give up your need for control. Instead of focusing on how his or her flaws or weaknesses, right? Focusing on that, instead of focusing on that, you need to let go of how he or she should be, right? What he or she should be saying or doing, right? And knowing that your way is not the only way. Your way is not the only way. There are things about my husband that would have irked me. They were not sinful. They were not harmful, right? Some may have been about areas of weaknesses, but they were just different to how I would do it or say it or see it, right? I had to stop thinking of what is wrong with him. My father wouldn't have done it like this. Or is he crazy? How could he think that that makes sense? Right? We are different. And to be honest, I am sure that he would have said the same things about me, right? Yeah, because we are different. And there are also different ways to get things done. My way is not the only way. And sometimes my way is not even the best way. It's not even the best way. So we have to give up that wanting to control another human being and almost like them be a carbon copy of us. So this is how we make up the bed. They need to make it up like this. They can make it up another way and get the same results or similar result. You might just be the better one at making up the bed, so you make up the bed, right? They're not going. So many things we just are different, and then one is a male, one is a female. We are different, right? Now, these last four things you should know about acceptance in marriage will look at other ways that you can be more accepting of your spouse. And I got some great advice from Dr. Sherry Campbell of Mommyverse, and I have put them into three categories. But I want to go back to that last point. Are you controlling? I think it's sometimes we have to reflect on that. Is it that, however, I may have grown up, I felt like I had very little control over my life. So one of the things that makes me feel safe is being able to, to feel that strong sense of control, in every area of my life, which will also include my relationships. And if you're saying yes, when I look at my life, I do need to feel in control most of the times or all of the time. And yes, I can see that I am controlling. You should get help because that's very destructive to relationships. While it is understandable, especially if persons grew up in very dysfunctional homes where it felt very disorganized, a lot of changes happening, a lot of moves, not being sure, if daddy came home, mommy came home, what mood they would be in, and just always feeling like there was nothing under your control. You can't grow up as an adult who needs a lot of control to feel safe. But that can be very destructive to your relationships, right? So back to number 7, we want to be more accepting. We need to deal with our thinking. Number 7, our thinking matters. So we want to watch your expectations. Watch your expectations. When you become frustrated with your partner, check in with your thoughts. Is this something that your partner really needs to change for you? Or can you change your expectations to meet whatever unfulfilled needs yourself? What it is that your partner's, why is it your partner's job to live according to your expectations? And that's why, again, as I would have shared in part 1, the importance of us sharing similar personal core values. That's very important. As I said, do your research, try to find out what are your top 10 personal core values, because healthy marriages are not about those feelings that we have in the first year or the first year and a half. Those things are chemicals and they're not going to sustain a healthy long-term marriage, right? It's important. Can two work together unless they agree? It's important that we're not unequally yoked, and that is not just about both of us being followers of Jesus. What are our core values? What matters to us? What do we prioritize in life? Very important. So it's important to watch your expectations. Am I expecting something from my partner that it's not even for them to do? It's something that I need to do. Or do I need to change my expectations here? Because they can't do this, right? Use positive thinking. So again, this is number 7. Your thinking matters. Use positive thinking. Negative thinking for us as human beings is way easier, much easier than positive thinking because it really requires no effort to know. To think negatively, to criticize, these things require very, very little effort, if any at all, right? And it's also self centered. When we aren't accepting our partner, it's the result of seeing the negative in them instead of focusing on why someone is the way he or she is. Choose to focus on what is great about him or her. Whatever you don't like about him or her, you will need to learn to fulfill with God's grace. So there are things you need to be able, and that's why your self-care, self-compassion is so important. And some people say the self thing, but God commands us to love others and to love ourselves. So God expects you to love you. You know why? Because God loves you. God loves you and he wants you to love you. And it's important for us to be able to know what are those things that make us feel happy, that energizes us emotionally, that we can do for ourselves. So you're not always dependent on your spouse to make you happy. You need to do the things that make you happy and know what those things are. You need to be able to do those things that would energize you emotionally. And it's not that they're not doing things that making you happy and they're not doing things that energizing you, but it is not all on your partner. That does not work well. And then in terms of dealing with our thinking matters, eliminate black and white thinking. Flexibility is the key ingredient to any lasting relationship. It's easy to view the world in black or white with a right or wrong way to do everything. But that is not realistic, right? Stop labeling your way as the right way. And remember, it is only right for you. This is how you see it. What is right for you may not be right for your partner. You all are unique. You all are different. I will say the only one way is Jesus is the only way to the Father. That's the only way. Any other way is wrong, right? But other than that, there are many ways to get things done, to enjoy life, right? So your way is just one way, and your way may just be the right way for you. So there's a way that I hold the knife, and when people look at it, they wonder how I ain't chop up myself yet. But that is the right way for me. I can't hold the knife any other way, right? So you could hold the knife your way, I'll hold the knife my way. I accept that. And then we need to be able to, number 8, work on ourselves. So work on yourself. Turn off your inner critic. Our judgments of others are often a result of our personal criticisms. If we stop putting pressure on ourselves to always get things right, to be perfect, we likely stop putting pressure on others as well. Not doing the harmful judging of ourselves is a crucial step to accepting our partners and ourselves. Very important. So, some of us have that perfectionist streak, and we expect this in everyone. So we want to be able to turn off that inner critic. So this is working on yourself. We want to also see things in the reverse. So working on yourself. Ask yourself, how would it feel if your partner judged you and didn't accept you? So see it in reverse. How would you feel? How would you feel? When your expectations aren't being met, keep these questions in mind. And sometimes we really do have to change our expectations. because our expectations were driving the disappointment and the resentment. So like you expect your husband to, when he cut his bread, don't leave crumbs on the counter, right? And sometimes he clean it up, but for most times he doesn't. Well, sometimes you just have to expect if he cut bread on the counter, he wouldn't see it, but I could clean it up. So it stopped becoming a problem because you have chosen, okay, it's gonna happen and I will clean it up because I'm sure there are things for that he does that he may expect you to do that you don't even see. And that's the whole thing with marriages, right? It is a dance. And a lot of times the only time we realize how much our spouse was doing in the relationship is when, unfortunately, things like death and they are no longer there. And you realize, oh my God, he was doing this, she was doing that. Don't wait until then to realize how much slack we both picking up, for each other to make this relationship good. So see things in the reverse. Also, you want to focus on yourself. When you're happy and fulfilled as an individual, you'll be less critical of your partner. As I tell people, I know how to make myself happy. I know the things that make me happy, and I do them. So it is very easy for my husband to make me happy because I'm happy already. And remember, happiness is about happenings. It's about those things that we're able to do to make ourselves feel happy. So me just sitting down in nature, sitting down in my gallery and just watching the grass and the flowers and the whatever, that makes me really happy, right? So I'm happy already. Um, so I think that's important. This takes a lot of pressure off of your marriage, and it boils down to personal responsibility for self-love. If you love yourself and are responsible for your own happiness, you are able to love your partner and, your partner simply for being your partner instead of seeing your partner as a need meter. He's there to meet my needs, she's there to meet my needs. Remember, of course, this is not me saying that the things a husband or wife needs to do to make each other feel love, that we're not supposed to do that, because a marriage is about cherishing and loving each other. So if I know the things that we talk about, things like love languages, that would make my husband feel love, or that what will make your wife feel love, you do those things because they are the object of your love. So this is not me saying here, you don't need to do the things that you need to do to make your wife feel love or to make your husband feel love. Yes, you need to do those things because it's a love relationship. And number 9, stop going over the past. If we need to be accepting in our marriages, we need to stop going over the past. Stay focused on the present. When we compare situations to the past, we tend to be less accepting. We all make mistakes. So try not to ruminate, go about over and over and over about what happened right before, and live in the present. Give your partner the gift of thinking about the present. Comparing things to the past always hinders, and it hinders our acceptance of the current reality, and it destroys our marriages. Now, this is the importance as couples that we deal with issues as they come up. And once we are forgiven and repented, we release those things and we don't bring them back up. And I think sometimes why we keep going back into the past is because things have not been addressed. And therefore, the importance of addressing painful issues in our marriages and letting them go. Right? I always say to people, if I lied 2 years ago, that is a fact. And that could always be held against me, even if I have sought forgiveness and I have repented. If you bring it up, it is the truth. So imagine there's nothing I can do to change that. I can't change it, right? It is in the past, and you can always be using this against me. We can see how destructive that would be in relationships. So the need for forgiveness and repentance is crucial to healthy marriages, and we have to stop. Once we've dealt with it, we have to stop bringing it up, ruminating. So we have to when it comes back into our mind, find ways to shut it off, read something, say a prayer, focus on something else, and then it's eventually it stops coming back as frequently, and then it doesn't come back again unless you choose to think about it. Yeah. And number 10, pray. Pray. Ask God for his grace. And grace, this type of grace I'm talking about, is divine empowerment. Divine empowerment. So power from God to be more accepting of your spouse. Remember that serenity prayer that many of us have heard, and it says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And prayer is always important in our marriages. We cannot have healthy marriages without God's grace, his divine empowerment. And God is willing to hear us and to answer our prayer, because marriage is God's idea. And interesting enough, if you're a follower of Jesus, we understand that God was present. He was one of the witnesses in our marriages. And a witness in a marriage, a witness in a wedding ceremony, is actually not there to dress up and look nice or to eat your food, the food that you brought. The primary purpose of a witness in a marriage is to help the couple, is to support the couple, is to ensure that the couple keeps their promises to each other. So either where you may need to remind them of the promises that they made, or help in some way in them continuing to keep the promise that you made. So anytime you get an invite to a wedding, remember the purpose of you being there is not to look pretty and handsome and to eat some nice food, right? It is you and take all the pictures, right? The real purpose of you being there is as a witness to the promises that these two persons are making to each other and to God, and to support them in keeping those promises. Take it seriously, please, because God takes it serious. So one of the greatest gifts that you can give your spouse is acceptance. And acceptance actually opens the door to change and healing. Actually, the more a person feels accepted is the more they want to change. We resist change when we feel rejected, when we feel misunderstood, when we feel like we're not accepted. Yeah? So, just a little tip in closing. Sometimes it's helpful to make a list about why you married your spouse, right? These are the reasons I married my husband. These are the qualities I was attracted to in my wife. So, you're making a list. Keep the list handy, not on the fridge, eh? No one else needs to see it. So not on the fridge. Keep it somewhere and on your phone, in your notes app, on your tablet or your iPad. We don't need to see it, right? And read it. Pull it up. Read it when you're feeling confused or angry. Read it before you're feeling confused or angry, right? Read it when you're feeling happy about your marriage and grateful. Read it then. It reinforces those emotions, right? So get at this. And every time you read your list, it should bring a smile to your face. right? And you should realize how blessed you really are. So, in closing, acceptance is a heart matter and a choice. It acknowledges the reality of a situation or a person as they are without trying to change or resist it. Acceptance is about embracing differences and seeing them as valid and valuable. Acceptance does not mean I'm agreeing with your sinful behavior or unhealthy behavior. Acceptance means that I will treat you respectfully as a person of worth, even when I must speak to you about a fault. So, Tiffany,
Right here with you,
that's
Petreece.
it.
All right, so we have a minute and some seconds on the clock. We'll leave the phone lines open just in case anyone would like to call, make a comment. All right, 622-1981, 628-1981. And in the meantime, I will tell you where you can find Petreece. All right, check out her Facebook page, Petreece Cuffie and Associates, Equipping People for Life. You can also follow her on Instagram at Petreece Cuffie1470 and her website, coffeeconsultant.com. If you wish to call in now, this is your chance, 622-1981, 628-1981. I didn't see any messages coming in via the WhatsApp. Let me just make sure. All right. Okay, so guys, remember, if you would have missed it or maybe you tuned in and you only got part of the message, you can head on over to FBN TV, that's on YouTube, and Isaac the Promise on Facebook. All right, Petreece, so want to say thank you once again for being here with
Welcome.
us. All right, this was Acceptance in Marriage Part 2, 10 Things You Should Know About. All right, so until we meet again, Petreece, you have a beautiful day. God bless you. Blessings
You
to
too.
Huey
God bless you
and
too.
your daughter. Until we meet. Take care. Have a great one.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys. Well, this is where we close things off. Another edition of the program, Healthy Relationships, with counselor and trainer Petreece Cuffie. I want to say thank you to Petreece once again. Don't forget to check out her website, coffeeconsultant.com. Check out her services, counseling online and in person for individual, adults, adolescents, married and premarital couples, families as well. There's online support groups for divorced and separated persons, online mentoring and coaching groups for married couples with Huey and Petreece Cuffie, and also there's training, workshops and webinars. Available webinars on the website at coffeeconsultant.com. And there are also the books available at amazon.com. Check them out. What My Parents Taught Me About Sex, Marriage and Choosing a Husband by Huey and Petreece Cuffie, and A Mind for Christ by Huey Cuffie. Right, so we close things off once again. Her number, did I give you the number? It's a message only number, 329-7383, 329-7383. Send a message and she's going to respond to you.
Hi, I'm Petreece Cuffie, counselor and trainer, and one of my deepest desires is to see people experience the fulfillment and growth that comes through healthy relationships. We're wired for relationships, so tune in and join with me as I explore and discuss tools for healthy relationships every Monday, 12:15 p.m. on Isaac 98.1 FM.
Isaac 98.